finding picks where they shouldn't, and all of a sudden, OCF does get one down. Finds a pick onto the Flavia through arches. Great jump peek. But oh, all of a sudden now 3v3. 2v3 actually now. It's super close. BAIMO super low. Ming had to throw it, misses her orb here, gets flanked by the BAIMO. It's only Riichi left. And OCF are the winners of the entire Foreigners Cup tournament. GG, well played. Either with the Waiguan tourney, or also known as the Foreigners Cup ending, and the CBT steadily approaching for Strinova, I thought it would be a good idea to compile some tips and tricks for you newer players looking to get your hands messy with the CBT for Strinova. So I gathered some information from multiple sources, including Karyu and some other Singularity players, which basically come from this game's version of Radiant Challenger Predator. You get the idea at this point. I won't be going into any of the nitty gritty with it, as me and the rest of the Strinova community want everyone to play this game at a blank slate. It's always more fun this way. So let's just get into it. Let's start with the most basic tip revolving around this game's base gimmick and mechanic. Starting out in Strinova, you'll have to get used to its unique paper mode mechanic, which grants you a myriad of benefits, from damage reduction from guns, to hurtbox shifting, to even its general increased mobility. Stuff like this is abused to max in the high echelons of Strinova, so getting used to spamming this mechanic is an absolute must. That being said, binding your paper mode key to a mouse button, like a side mouse button or even shift, is a good idea as compared to other games with crouch. You're using paper mode 24/7 in this game anyway, so might as well. I honestly would more recommend using it on a shift key. I use it on a mouse key personally, but it's better to use it on a shift key just in case your button presses on your mouse will shift your aim a little bit. So just in case, put it on something like shift or something like that. Additionally, you can turn off things like auto stick and auto jump just to get rid of any of the annoying instances where you stick or jump off a wall accidentally. Always happens, pretty annoying. This as well as toggle versus hold for paper mode itself. Most Singularity players recommend using hold for paper mode. There's multiple reasons for this, including the fact that it's easier to shoot while using paper. It's a very common practice for high-level players to use this type of technique, as I'm showing on screen right here, and it's much easier with hold than toggle. But at the end of the day, it's honestly really preference. I got used to toggle, so I use toggle myself. And if you're wondering, Karyu uses hold as well as a lot of other high-level Singularity players. Another quick tip is that you can reload in paper mode, so make use of that if you're stuck in a firefight and obviously need to reload. It's always better to do this than just make yourself a sitting duck reloading in their face. If you really need to, pull out your secondary, use that ammo as well. It's always better to pull out that secondary than your primary weapon.
Your pistol is always faster than reloading.
Just in case. Surprisingly, people don't use their abilities, so use your abilities. It's mostly because this game is heavily reliant on its gunplay. Most of the abilities in this game allow you to use your gunplay in a better way, and as well as the nades. There are no damaging supposed mollies, so you're less reliant on damage with your utility, so it's mostly about the gunplay, but still use your abilities. Make sure you get yourself into a favorable position to use your gunplay to the max. So that's it with that one. Shoulder aim or zoom aim or whatever you want to call it is also a highly used feature in Strinova. Reducing spread when confronting enemies in a chaotic game is normally really important, even if you make yourself vulnerable, since you're now walk maxing most of the time. This is a thing I've noticed, but there's also many players here on the Chinese server that don't actually use shoulder aim as well, even in master lobbies, interestingly enough. And because of that, they sometimes miss out on a lot of damage they would otherwise be outputting onto an enemy's face. Here's an example with no shoulder aim versus shoulder aim right here. You can see in the shoulder aim has a lot more accuracy, even at like probably mid-range, almost long range even. There are some instances where normal hip aim does do wonders if you're point blank in their face, jumping around, maximizing that chaotic situation to your potential here. But that's usually the only place where you want to use normal hip aim. So find the balance between using shoulder aim, ADS, and normal hip fire. Learn to figure out the various ways to utilize shoulder aim in your general mobility as well to maximize your supposedly lower movement. And that's it for this tip. Since I don't think this has a name yet, I'll be calling it the double hit scan property for now, just to allow you to keep it in mind. This mechanic revolves around how the guns in Strinova work. When closing in on an enemy, you will realize your gun's barrel aim is suddenly taken into account. But what about your crosshair then? Surely it does. Oh, okay. This is the double hit scan property. Both your crosshair and your gun barrel are both taken into account for hit registration. So at close quarters, it becomes easier to land your shots at close range. This property disappears at around 20 meters or so, likely because your gun barrel and your crosshair converge their aim at this point. Like any competitive game, information is usually the key to victory. It's often why in other games like League, Valorant, Apex, you will often see large mini-maps, so you can get as much information of your surroundings as possible. Strinova is no different. Make sure your minimap is big enough to keep an eye on throughout the game, and get used to staring at it as well, like paint drying on a wall. Hell, bind your map key to an easier to access key, so you will have the entire map at the click of a button. Nades are the only realistic way to give you and your team an advantage in Strinova, either stalling or denying pushes, or allowing your team to storm the site, or just deny anything at all together. Find interesting ways to use your nades as well, like getting up onto higher platforms, stalling the bomb, preventing the bomb plant, punishing aggression. Most of this comes from the win nade, but at this point you get the idea. I'll probably include this in a later guide video, but there is currently a meta on how many and what type of nades your team should have, and including a bunch of other stuff with the meta, but I'm not going to be putting that here because I want to see wacky stuff in the TBT go really wild. However, I will mention that generally, if your nade works well with your character, don't hesitate to bring it. Such like smokes, if you're using a scan character, if you're using like stall with a stall character, you get the idea. There are fixed recoil patterns for all guns in the game. Get used to them. Also know that shoulder aim uses the recoil patterns as well. I really don't. Just like Valorant, League, this is old. Ultimates can make or break rounds, so having your ultimate when you need it is always important. Pay attention to your team's potential ults versus their potential ults, and plan accordingly around them. Are you against a Meredith? Counter with Nobu ult. Against a Nobu, maybe rush his site specifically and try to take him down before he can use it, or even bait his ult. Against a BAIMO, just pray. Just pray you don't die. Otherwise, pay attention to how many points you have on ult. If you are on defense and you have the bomb ready to defuse at any time, make sure someone with, say, 2 points away is the one defusing the bomb, as they will get a point from defusing the bomb and another point from the round win. Yes, you can revive people. Instead of immediately dying, you're downed instead. You have the opportunity to revive and can be revived by your teammates. Please do so. A common mistake I've seen players do in the previous beta test is ignore the fact that revives are even a mechanic of the game. Numbers is a huge factor in winning rounds, so making sure your teammates survive can easily sway the round in your favor. So please, revive your teammates. Check your sends or something, since this game has a different way of using sends, especially when you look at the settings. It's much different from other games here. And turn off mouse moving, because it is bad with low DPI mice. I forget exactly what it does, but it's not mouse acceleration, but it can still lead to missed headshots down the line, so turn it off in advance. Also, try using a static crosshair like mine, as you see on the screen right here, as dynamic ones might disturb you while you're trying to aim at the enemy and overload your brain with big spread. You get the idea. In addition to all of this, you can also change your enemy's highlight color. Try making it the opposite color of your crosshair to easily line your shots when needed, or just make it a general color that is easy to react to. See if you're able to raise the volume of footsteps in this game. Being as chaotic as it is, hearing footsteps through the chaos can help you determine your enemy's position. You can turn off music as well if it bothers you by chance. Oh, no, not again. That should be most of what I personally want to say for now. So you can do YouTube stuff, sub, like, comment, blah, 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 blah. Also, one more tip. Look up. Look up. Need I say more?
煙幕弾すべてお見通しよ。私が見えるかしら。
絶対負けない。立ち上がる。
油断したのね。すべてお見通しよ。
インターセプター展開。
ソナーパルススキャン開始。
炸弹已成功安装。
ステラーズ発動。
しばらくそうしていなさい。
被弾しました。致命傷です。
すべてお見通し。ソナーパルススキャン開始。まだいけるわ。予定通り。
いいね。势均力敌。
私はラギーン。世界を押し流し押しつぶす。